Welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this podcast, it exists for you. Whether you're a music lover, an educator, a choir member, each week we bring guests to the show to help explore what matters in music. I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to the Music Ed Matters podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Williams Birch, and this is a teaching tip episode with my new friend, VanderGraaff. Now, let me start by saying, if you have an idea, if you know someone that needs to be on the podcast, Zach is an awesome example of someone who went to emilybirch.org/contact and sent me a contact sheet. He is about to drop so many great, quick teaching tips your way. And you're going to want a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to want to check out his website. But here's what I think you're really going to get out of this one. Zach is concise. He says, here are the things that harness student energy and enthusiasm and help with classroom management, help with engagement, and get us all excited about teaching again. So I really love this episode because of the tips. I love the episode because Zach's easy to talk to, and I really hope that you get a lot out of this. You know I want to hear all about it. So this episode is brought to you by our friends at the Kinnison Choral Company and Kaleidoscope Adventures. I can't wait for you to check out the Dynamic Music Room and hear from my friend, Zach VanderGraff. Today on the Music Ed Matters podcast, we are talking to an extraordinarily awesome educator, Zach VanderGraff. Hey, Zach.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Did I say your last name correctly?
You did. It's phonetic.
Oh, it's awesome. Okay, so y'all, there's 2 A's and 2 F's. So VanderGraff. Where's that from?
It's a good Dutch name.
Ah,
it's a good
okay.
Dutch name. Yep.
Okay, what's your family history? How did you end up in Midland, Michigan?
So I'm in Midland more recently because that's where my wife's from. And so I moved up here to be with her. My family comes from the east side of Michigan. Formerly, so this would be my grandpa's dad and mom, were first generation Americans. They immigrated from the Netherlands and they moved to Holland, Michigan, which is a big Dutch community.
Cool.
And then they kind of had a falling out with their family. Something about like my great grandma's family didn't want my great grandpa to marry her. And so they had to move to the other side of the state to be together.
That's like old school 1800 drama or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, y'all that are listening, I want to start by saying, and I said this in the opening, send the email. Zach reached out to me using the contact page on the website, and I am so glad you did, Zach. You have so much to bring to the podcast. I'm really looking forward to today's episode. So listeners, if you know someone, if you are someone that needs to be featured, emilybirch.org/contact, that's how I met Zach. So Zach, tell the listeners and me, since I'm just getting to know you, who are you, where are you from, and how did you get into music education?
Sure. Well, my name's Zach. I've taught K-5 general music across several districts in the state of Michigan for the past 12 years now. I've also taught elementary choir, which was super fun, and I miss it, but that was a lot of different kinds of work too. I earned my bachelor's and master's in music education from Central Michigan University, so fire up chips, woohoo. And when I was going there, it's kind of funny. Most people, when they go to be a music teacher, they want to teach band or choir or orchestra. And I was one of those people. I'm a tuba player by trade. And I went there and, okay, I'm going to be a band director. But then my second year there, I almost quit the whole program because that huge job of being a band director held no interest for me. Like, I appreciate what band directors do, but your jobs are so hard. So I was actually going to leave, and then I observed a couple really awesome teachers in the area, and I just felt inspired to teach elementary music. My own experience was very meh when I was in elementary school, and so seeing these teachers do really awesome things inspired me. At Central Michigan, I took Kodai Level 1 and Level 2 classes, which was a lot of fun. They didn't offer Level 3, so I applied for the Yeno Adam, probably saying it wrong, however you say that, the scholarship there through the National Kodai organization. And I went to Indiana University, which has an awesome program, and got my Level 3 there. It was super tons of fun, and they're really awesome people. So anybody interested in Kodai stuff should go there. And it's pretty affordable too. Recently in 2019, I started the Dynamic Music Room, which is my music resource website for music teachers. It's for parents and musicians of all kinds too. But since my experience is elementary music, that's kind of where I started with it. And that's what the bulk of it is right now. But we've been expanding. And over the past 3 years, I'm pretty proud to say, I hope this doesn't sound egotistical, I'm just proud of the work that we put in on it. That we're getting like 75,000 visitors a month to the site, helping people, which is super exciting. And that I get a lot of great feedback on people who are thrust into the elementary music position with not a lot of experience or know-how of where do I even start, and I can help them. So anybody who's kind of in that situation should check it out. It's pretty cool. And on a super personal, not super personal, but a super recent note and more personal, I'm actually going part-time with my music teaching now so that I can focus more on the dynamic music room side of things. And that's part of it. But the bigger part of it is actually my wife is a rock star band director in our area.
Very
so
cool.
When I talk about how busy they are, I know from like contact association how it's a job and a half. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to support my wife and take care of our 3 boys and all their busy sports and camps and other schedules like that, while being flexible in my own schedule. So it's like I'm a stay-at-home dad with some music stuff that goes on, and I love it. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, random fact, I had a stay-at-home dad, and he was the best classroom mom in every grade level. Yeah. I will never forget it. Dad, shout out if you're listening. He is the bomb. And I think that a lot of me is the way it is today because my mom worked a million hours, and she's super awesome too. I love you, Mom, but she doesn't listen. Dad is he was the coolest classroom mom ever. And they all called him the classroom mom. Yeah. Because that's what he did. I will always remember those moments. So I'm so happy that you found something, but that also we get to benefit from this something you've created. So the Dynamic Music Room, music resources, you say for teachers, for parents, what can people find on this resource, on this website?
So the bulk of it, like I was kind of talking about before, it's kind of the general music, elementary music side of things. So I have a lot of content that's kind of like lists of my favorite lesson plans for kindergarten or lesson plan examples for second grade, how to do different rhythm and beat activities with kindergarten, strategies for starting the year in music and different stuff like that. And a lot of it is kind of geared towards that elementary music side of things, but I also take on other bigger and broader issues, like trying to create a more authentic and engaging musical experience that kind of inspires the students to take more ownership of their learning.
I feel like that's where we're going with this conversation in a second, but I have one more question.
Sure.
So I teach music ed methods classes, and I do introduction to music ed and elementary music methods. How would you see this resource being useful to those pre-service teachers, the early teachers that are in their first few years versus the middle to end of the road teachers? That sounds mean. End of their career. Middle, let's rephrase that. Skirt. Okay, early teachers, let's call them experienced teachers and teachers who are starting to wrap up their careers. How was that? That's much better.
Yeah. Well-seasoned teachers.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're brand new, then I would suggest when you visit the site, just kind of peruse through song lists or check out my big long guide of like how to teach elementary music that kind of goes over my basic framework for how I view teaching elementary. And a lot of people use that as a way to give them some place to start. I'm not spoon feeding everyone everything, but a lot of people come out of their programs and they have a handful of activities and lessons and some techniques with teaching, but then you go there and within a month you've blasted through everything you have.
Right.
And it's a lot easier for new teachers to get their minds around how a performing ensemble classroom looks. We have these pieces and we're rehearsing for the concert, and we can set up all these cool teaching techniques, but it's kind of built around these songs or these pieces. In elementary music, it's really a whole other animal, because the instant you let them decide what they want to do with their energy, it just goes askew, especially in kindergarten. It's like herding cats. So you've got to manage that flow. For middle of the road and well experienced teachers, I would advise you to just check out my song list, songs and lessons, because I put a lot of different things on there, just maybe something new for you to discover. You're sick of doing the same old, okay, well, I really want to work on do, mi, and sol. So I need some new songs. I've done the same ones for the past 10, 20 years. I need something new. Well, you can go search that on my site and you'll find some of my favorite ones and find something new.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I have one more question specifically
Sure.
for music ed students. So we always do this fun, like almost debate where they have to define all of the different approaches and methods that they can do to enhance their elementary music teaching.
Sure.
And then argue why they want to get certified in a specific one.
Yeah.
Or two. Sometimes they pick two.
Yeah.
Why would you advocate for Kodai?
I'm a big advocate for people going out there and getting the first couple of years of experience in and realizing where they're deficient at. For Kodai, the thing that really fit for me is that I had some really awesome ORF teachers who were my host teachers and mentor. So I had a lot of great ways to teach and awesome songs and activities, but I didn't really have a framework to put it in. And I didn't have a huge basket of tactics and techniques to pull out to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to use this visual reading technique to do this, or this kinesthetic activity to reinforce a dotted quarter note and eighth note kind of thing. And going through my Kodai training really provided an awesome framework, as well as these teaching tools for helping manage engagement and behavior and stuff like that compared to some of the other methodologies. So my biggest thing for Kodai is if you take even just the level 1, you'll be able to apply specific teaching tactics to help you get what you want done and help the students really understand music better.
I love it. That's a great explanation. I mean, there's pros for all of them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so much to learn, but I love that you said teach a little bit, see where your deficiencies are, and that framework. That's really key. I love it. Now, you've hinted at our main topic for the day, and I'm kind of excited to dive into it. When we first were communicating over email, you talked about a lot of different topics, and I'm really glad you picked this one. Harnessing student energy and enthusiasm in the music room. Let's hear it.
All right. Yeah. My first years teaching, everyone's first years teaching are hard, but I was exhausted constantly because I felt I was the battery. I was the thing that was making the Energizer bunny of our classroom go. And the kids loved it, but I realized it was me. I was making them go. I was having them do this. And it was I think they had a great experience. But over the past few years, as I've gotten older and more tired and busier with 3 kids of my own, I've taken a step back, and I've realized more that if we can harness their energy, because they're just like these little balls of fire and sun that they want to explode in every single direction. If we can channel that and facilitate that as teachers into our lessons and through specific kind of techniques, we can make them own their experience more, and we can raise their engagement and learning as like a secondary bonus effect.
I love that. And that's something we talk about all the time. When we do student teaching observations, we have this rubric thing. And one of the elements is how teacher-centric it is. And of course, it's written in a much more appropriate way with exact bullet point things that the teacher's doing. But that is 100% what most beginning teachers can't handle. How do they step away and let the students take control? And like you say, harness their ball of sun energy to power, so you don't have to be the Energizer bunny. So what are the steps? How do you do this?
All right. So the past few years, especially, and a lot of this comes from, I love working with pre-service teachers and student teachers and new teachers. It's one of my favorite things because it really makes me step back and think through the things I'm doing and why they're good or terrible or useless. Mm-hmm. And it makes me a better teacher. And for myself, over the past couple of years, I've kind of come up with 4 points or areas that I use to help in harnessing the student energy. The first one has always been super important to me, and I nerd out, is on lesson planning for engaging lessons. The second one is a newer thing for me, which is allowing and encouraging more student choice in the classroom and being intentional about that. I'm not really a type A personality, but sometimes I am with my lesson plans. I don't want them to, oh, I have this perfect movement thing I chose on purpose, give them the control, but I've learned to let go. The third thing is cooperative learning for me. And I know that's a bad word for a lot of music teachers because their admin might make them go through PD on that. And they're like, this is never going to work. But we already do a lot of the cooperative learning basics. So if we can just kind of give some things a shot and adapt it, it's actually really good for getting them to work together and peer to peer, especially with the older elementary and middle school kids. That's their jam. That's where they thrive, and they just feed off each other. And it's awesome if you can control it. And then the fourth thing is to inspire more sharing outside of music. Take your music out of your classroom and do it other places. In the elementary world, I see my kids once a week for 45 minutes. Some of the teachers in my district see them twice a week for half a year, and then they're done. Whoa. And it's just kind of an insane schedule. So any way that we can keep their love and passion for music kind of stoked and burning throughout the week makes it easier when they come back just to relight that fire and get stuff done.
I love it. Okay, let's start with the first one. How do you suggest that we write engaging lesson plans?
Oh, I'm such a nerd for this topic. I love lesson plans. It's terrible. So the big thing here, and I learned this from one of my music ed professors, Dr. Alan Gum, is he talked about every activity, everything you do in a lesson, it kind of has there's two levels here. There's concentration and there's energy. And so when you're doing something that's higher energy, by necessity, it's going to be lower concentration. So this would be like, we're doing an opening song that's just for fun, or we're doing a movement game where the goal isn't really to learn, but to reinforce steady beat or form through kinesthetic way. And so you're working hard, but you're not thinking really hard, if that makes sense. On the flip side, when you want to have high concentration, you have some lower energy, things slow down. It's like, I hate mowing the lawn, but I like this metaphor if you've ever mowed a lawn. When you get to a really thick bit of grass, you can't just keep going. You have to slow down and let the lawnmower kind of catch up with it to churn through all that thick grass. And the kids need that too. If you try to high energy power through something that's really difficult, they're going to get confused and frustrated. So for me, with lesson planning, every single activity we do is flip-flopping those to some degree. I'm going to have something fun to get them excited, but not make them work too hard with their brains. And then we're going to switch. And now we slow down with the energy, but we're letting their brains work really hard. And then just as they're starting to get done with it, we switch again and I get them back. So in my lessons, we're always alternating the types of activities we're doing between the high energy, low energy, that kind of thing. And I base it on their age. There's an old rule of thumb that kids can pay attention for their age plus 1 minute. So if you're in kindergarten, they're 5 years old. So you need to switch something up every 5 to 6 minutes. I think that number is actually lower, depending on what time of day you have them, or if they just came back from a field trip and they're all hot and the teacher just sends them to you without a drink. Not that happened anytime this week at all. So, and then for the older kids, they can pay attention for longer. So that's kind of how I base my lesson plan on that. I'm always switching those activities to help keep their energy channeled and in flow throughout. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. This is awesome. I'm already planning where I'm going to assign this podcast in my syllabi this fall. This is fantastic. Okay, so we have the very basic structure, and there's more on your website. But the second thing is student choice. Let's talk about that.
Sure. And this has been, like I kind of alluded to before, this has been a bigger struggle for myself. You spend all these years in school and training and you're like, okay, I'm ready to be the teacher. And taking a step back helps get more energy and builds their enthusiasm too. So I kind of in my head view it as like micro choices or macro choices or simple choices, complex choices, and all choices will help the students feel more connected to the music. And it doesn't have to be a completely free choice either. You don't have to just say, all right, do what you want, because then it's just chaos. Macro choices would be things like if you were doing a choir, when I did elementary choir, I always let them pick one piece. I gave them a bunch of options, or I even let them just try to find some stuff and see what could work. And just having that one piece, giving up that little bit of control, well, a lot for a concert, helped them buy into all the other stuff I was doing, even if it wasn't really their cup of tea. Mm-hmm. Another kind of like macro choice would be if you were doing a project where they were building a playlist or researching someone they were interested in, that kind of thing. I love marching band stuff. I'm a tuba player. My wife's a tuba player. That's where we met in college. We're both it's kind of adorable. And I'm adorable by association.
I was going to say that's adorable.
I'm adorable by association. She's adorable. I'm just a tag along. And so I let them build their own marching band halftime show with my fifth graders, and the stuff they come up with is so funny. But we can really get into the weeds on what I'm trying to teach them at that moment about like putting on a show, and you have to think about what you're putting when and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, life skills.
Life skills
stuff. Yeah, that's so cool. All right, macro and micro. Choice.
So those are little ones. So with my elementary, especially my littles, it's super easy stuff. Like if we do Johnny works with one hammer and we're doing all the different additive motions, I might say, okay, Johnny's hammer broke. Give me another tool to use. Oh, and then all of a sudden they're just like, oh my gosh, well, it's a screwdriver, it's a sandwich. And I'm like, I don't know who uses a sandwich as a tool except for me. But yeah, so they get that choice and it's super easy for them. Even the older kids, it's shocking. If I'm teaching them a new song, I'll have them do some kind of beat motion and I'll say, hey, give me another complicated beat motion with 3 different parts so we can do with this. And all of a sudden they're like fighting over who gets to share their idea. And they're 5th graders and they're too cool for school, but they want to like do some body percussion stuff with a new song.
I love it.
In choirs, you could do this too, where if a lot of choir teachers, as I'm sure you know and your listeners know, will do a lot of movement to help get the point across. The teacher doesn't have to give all the movement choices. Mm-hmm. Just say, what do you think would be a better movement option for this? Let's try it. And maybe it's not as good as the one you would have picked, but I bet they're more bought into that part of the lesson than they were before.
Yeah, like how would you sing this? How would you? I hope my students all conduct the spring concert. All my high school students conduct the spring concert. So yeah. I don't actually. I think I conducted 3 pieces this last concert, and they did 12. So it's really fun to see because throughout the process, how do you want this to sound? Sing it for us. Okay, show us that with your hands. And they are so much more engaged. That's such a good one. I love it. Student choice. Okay, lesson planning, student choice, cooperative learning.
Cooperative learning. It's such a dirty word for some people.
Really? Why?
Well, I think it's because it's one of those things that like if your administration forces it on you, you're like, I don't want to do it. This is extra. And my administration, I had been trained on cooperative learning before, and I actually did my my master's literature review on cooperative learning in music and that kind of thing. So I've always been passionate about it. But my current administrator, he had the staff like they were forced trained on it. And he, the best of intentions, but so much of them just didn't even buy into it, music or not, because it was forced on them. Like, I don't want to do it.
That goes back to number 2, student choice, teacher choice.
Right.
Let's look at that tie-in. Can you do me a favor? Can you define cooperative learning for the listeners?
Sure. So cooperative learning is, in how I kind of define it, is it's intentional group work from A to Z. Everything about how you do the small group work or the partner work has to be intentional. And in my research, I found that through the different cooperative learning strategies that are out there, they all shared like the same 5 things, and they're all really simple to implement. Common goal setting. You have to be really specific about what you have them do. Grouping strategies. What size groups are you using? If it's a simple task, 2 to 3 is the best number. If it's a more complicated task, 3 to 5, but I wouldn't go more than 5, that kind of a thing. Accountability. Are they actually going to be turning something in? Are you checking in at them with them like on every stage to make sure that each person has a job that they're doing? The teacher role is supposed to be active. That's probably the biggest pitfall of cooperative learning, is that you say, okay, here's your group project, go. And then you just kind of sit back and wait for the magic to happen. And then they're off task. It doesn't happen. And then the fifth one is there's structures. Everyone has a job and they need to stay focused. So for example, if you were doing, I'm trying to think of one, you could have one like rally coach where you were working together, where it was in a group of two and you're writing down rhythms or something. And one person has the answer and the other person doesn't. So one person gets to try to answer, the other person helps correct them. And then they switch jobs. If you just say, okay, here's this, take turns figuring out how to write these rhythms down and help each other when you get it wrong, that's not cooperative learning. That's small group chaos. Okay. You have to follow it up with all these different things. And that's such a big topic. It's really hard for me to like condense it. I do have a pretty in-depth article on my website on cooperative learning with some more specific examples. So if anyone's really interested in that, they should check it out. If you Google search cooperative learning and music, I'm like the top result right now. So the dynamic music room. So if you find that, there's just stuff in there. And if you're really nerdy, you want to read my literature review, you can read my literature review. I put it in there too.
Nice. Well, if you really like this topic, you can also do like Zach and do the emilybirch.org/contact and say, hey, we want Zach back to talk about cooperative learning. And we could do a whole other episode on cooperative learning.
Yeah.
So much fun. Okay. I love how this is all piecing together. So we're doing these things to harness energy and harness enthusiasm. No, I was right the first time. Harness student energy and enthusiasm in the music room. I just love how you say it, so I want to make sure I say it perfectly. So we've talked about lesson planning. We've talked about student choice. We've given a little teeny tiny sneak peek into the definition of cooperative learning. Tell us about this whole inspire through sharing outside of the classroom.
Sure. Yeah. This is an area for myself I'm developing more lately, because I really want them to continue to do music. And I think about it at the end of every school year. They're going to have all summer without me. I want them to be able to do music things without me. So some ideas that I've come up with that I've tried with success are I send share sheets home. And this is not my idea. I got this from Dr. Feyerabend, who does the FAME stuff. You say, ask your child to sing you Froggy in the Meadow. Ask your child about this marching band show that they designed, and have them go home. And then I try to incentivize it sometimes a little bit. Like if you get it signed by a couple people and you bring it back, maybe you're in a drawing for something, or I can put your name up on the wall as someone who completed this challenge. Speaking of challenges, I love challenges and competitions class to class. I don't like in the class competitions, because in the heat of the moment, some of them get a little too competitive. But this would be something like clapping games, like Miss Mary Mac or something like that. How fast? Here's what I taught you how to do this. Now here's what I want you to do on your own time. See how fast you can do it, or how accurately you can do it. And I'll record your scores and we'll post the scores on my bulletin board. And it's funny to see some of these like 4th and 5th graders who think that they're all that because they play football, and they're out there and they're like, Miss Mary Mac, and they're just like doing the clapping games like crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really funny. Teach them games that they don't need you for. So hand clapping elimination games or hiding games and stuff like that. If they sing a song and hide it and that kind of thing, ways that they can do it without you. I guess if I'm thinking for like choir or band stuff, that's not really my forte there.
You can give us elementary stuff. I want to know about this whole hiding a song thing.
Oh, the hiding games. Maybe I didn't say that right. So this would be something like I have lost the closet key, or I've done it with like Button You Must Wander, where one person hides an object in the room. Another person has their eyes closed. They can't see it. Everybody else in the class sees where it is. and the person who couldn't see it, the finder, has to go around the room and find the object. The class is giving them hints by singing the song louder and softer as they get closer and farther away.
Very
that
fun.
kind of thing. So they don't need me for that, really. So, and just even pointing out to them, you can play this without me. They get really excited about that.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What about like when you're doing all these things, is it simply just, did you come up with all these ideas because you needed to, or did you just realize not everyone had these ideas and you wanted to share it? Can we talk about where the dynamic music classroom sparked from?
Sure. Yeah. So really it's two places. And the second one's kind of a personal story, but it's been a few years, so I feel like I can share it now. In the first case, I've always been really close to my university Central Michigan, that I went to, because my family are like 4 generations of they went there and stuff. So I've always kind of been around there, and I've worked with a lot of pre-service student teachers and new music teachers. And as soon as they go into the field, half of the people out there end up with elementary music jobs, because half of the jobs are elementary music. And programs do a really good job of giving you the basics, like they should, and maybe your students are better than the ones I've seen.
There's only so much time in a class. That's the thing.
Yeah, there's only so much time.
Class.
Right. And if they're planning on being a band director or choir director, they might just be like, okay, I just got to get through this. Like, this was fun and nice, but that's not what I'm going to do. No,
and then they end up doing it.
Yeah, half the jobs out there have elementary music in some capacity. And so many people had no idea what to do. And I had built kind of this network in my area of people I knew who were becoming music teachers or who had gotten jobs. And they were always asking me, what do I do? I just need simple answers. I need ideas of what to do. And so I felt inspired to kind of put that on there and to put that out there as a dynamic music room. Now, if I'm getting a little personal now, about 4 years ago, I developed rheumatoid disease or rheumatoid arthritis. And so within a week, I went from being like a perfectly normal 29, 30-year-old to someone who couldn't walk or close my hands. I had a toddler, and I wouldn't hold my toddler because I was afraid I would drop him. And so that was really hard. It is scary. And I mean, now that I know what it is and I'm on the right medications, I feel like 95% of where I was. Some days are worse than others. Most days are really good now that I'm on the medication. But at the time, that's scary. And as part of my job being a music teacher, I couldn't play a piano. I couldn't play a ukulele. I could barely finger on a recorder. And it was really scary. And so with a whole lot of feelings, I'm like, I've tried so hard to gain all this knowledge and help all these people in elementary music. I don't really want it to go to waste. So I kind of felt inspired to do what I could to get it out there while it was still fresh in my mind. And now I'm doing much better. But at the time, it was really scary. And that was kind of the spark that made me start it in the first place.
Oh, I'm so sorry that happened, but I'm so happy for the spark that started this awesome resource. It sounds like this is a great teaching tip episode for ideas to rekindle, for ideas to get started, just all sorts of stuff. I'm so glad that you reached out and shared. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
How would you summarize our conversation today?
It's not your music class. It's theirs. And that's hard to let go, because we go through all this training and we do all this work and we put up with all this junk that happens in the world of education and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's their class. It's not ours. So if we can give any control or make the extra effort to take where they're at and have them run with it and facilitate learning rather than forcing it or presenting it, in whatever way, just that mentality shift has really made a big difference for me over the years. And it helps with classroom management too, because engagement is 95% of classroom management. So
I love it. Engagement is 95% of classroom management. I'm going to have so many quotes. I'm going to have to go through and figure out which ones actually make the quote cards, because this is awesome. Zach, I'm so glad that we've had this time to talk. It's flown
yeah.
by. I always let the guest say one thing that really, really matters. And you just gave us some good stuff that really matters. But before we go, is there anything else you want them to remember that really matters?
Sure, I do. And this is not related to what I talked about really at all, but more related to the state of education in general right now, which is really rough. I see people leaving the field all the time right now, and it's really heartbreaking, but I understand it. So my big thing for people is go make music yourself. You became a music teacher in the very beginning, not because you were like, oh, I really want to do this with kids. I really want to do that. Maybe you did, but the initial spark for you, your energy, your little ball of sunshine that started your path was making music for you. You made music in a choir or a band or something. And if you can make the effort to go do that, you'll feel so refreshed. And it won't have anything to do with kids. Don't be in charge of a band or a choir. Go participate. Be just a member of the group. I mean, one of the things that I learned most from COVID was how much I appreciate performing. My first performance after 2 years of not playing my tuba was in a German band. And so there I was in my lederhosen with a big old beer stein playing beer barrel polka and watching all these people do the polka. And I was almost in tears because that was the first time I'd made music. And it's not like a quality music experience, but it was for those people. And for me, like, we were making and sharing music and having a good time. And that's so important. And it feels so good.
I'd like to be invited to that event next time, please. Pictures would also be very much appreciated, but I would love to, just for the record, polka, dancing, and tears in one place, only after COVID.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome. Oh, Zach, I really enjoyed. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Sure, thanks.
Anyone else love the lawnmower quote? What about the exploding suns of energy? Zach provided us with so much great content today. Everything from the 4 areas that he really uses to engage and make enthusiastic and energetic opportunities for his students. Lesson planning, student choice, cooperative learning, inspiring opportunities to share music outside of the classroom. Also, if you haven't checked it out, Zach has an awesome YouTube page with a lot of his teaching examples. But really, it's not your music class, it's theirs. What a gem. And what an opportunity we have to really inspire and invigorate and kind of get out of the way so music can be made and memories can be made. And man, what a cool job we have. So in case you need more, patreon.com/musicedmatters. We have tons of conversations over there. As you know, Zach has tons of resources over at the Dynamic Music Room. But you, whatever you're doing, you matter. We all know that music matters, especially teaching kids, finding ways to get them enthusiastic and energetic about music and getting out of the way, because it's not your classroom, it's their music class. And I'll see you next time on the Music Ed